There was only the sky above and waters below, and this was ruled by the mighty Orisha, the council of gods. Olorun ruled the sky above, and Olokun was master of all that was in the waters below. One day, a god named Obatala decided to create dry land. He asked for permission from Olorun and advice from Orunmila, the wisest of the Orisha. You will need a long gold chain, a snail shell filled with sand, a white hen, a black cat, and a palm nut, said Orunmila. Once he had all of these items in a bag, Obatala hung the gold chain from a corner in the sky and began to climb down, down, down. He kept climbing down, down, down for a very long, long time, until he finally reached the bottom of the chain. Obatala poured the sand from the shell into the mist below and released the hen. The hen landed on the sand and immediately began pecking and scratching, scattering the sand into all directions. The sand soon became vast mountains and valleys. Obatala planted the palm nut and soon stood before an entire palm forest. Obatala was very pleased with his work. He named the land Ife and settled down with the cat to live on his new land. But after several months, Obatala became bored. He began shaping figures in clay. As he worked, he drank palm wine. Obatala kept drinking bowl after bowl after bowl, and kept making more and more figures. When he was finished, he asked Oloru to breathe life into his clay people. The next day, he saw his living, breathing work, and he realized that they were all deformed and ugly. In horror, Obatala swore never to drink again, and set to work building new, perfect beings from clay. As soon as Olorun breathed life into them, they immediately began building houses and cities. Obatala became the patron of mankind, and more specifically the deformed. All the Orisha were pleased with his work. All except Olokun, the master of the sea, who was never consulted about the creation of the earth and mankind in the first place. In anger, he caused a great flood, which nearly wiped out all of Obatala's creations. Once the waters resided, everyone took the sea very seriously from then on.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was a formless void, and the heavens and the earth were in darkness. Then God said, "Let there be light." Light streamed in, warming the earth and the heavens. God saw that this light was good. God separated light from darkness, and called the light day, and the dark night. And there was evening, and there was morning, which separated the day from the night. Thus night came over the first day. On the morning of the second day, God said, "Let there be a dome in the middle of the waters." The dome stretched above all waters and formed the sky. Night fell on the second day. The next day God said, "Let the waters be gathered together, and let dry land appear." And so it was. God called the dry land earth, and the waters seas, and saw that it was good. "Let the earth bear fruit," said God, and immediately plants and trees of all kinds filled the earth. The earth became rich and green. God saw that this was good, and night fell on the third day. On the fourth day God said, "Let there be lights in the heavens to separate night from day, the days into weeks, and seasons into years." God created two lights, a greater and a lesser, and set them in the sky to be the sun and the moon. He also created the stars, and set them above with the moon. The sun rose on the fifth day, and God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures, in the air and the seas, and on dry land. Creatures of all shapes and sizes began to fill the earth, and God blessed them by saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters and the skies and the land." God saw that this was good, and night fell on the 5th day. On the morning of the 6th day, God created man in his image, and called him Adam. From one of Adam's ribs, he created the first woman. She was called Eve, and was given to Adam to be his mate. God said to his creations, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth with your offspring, and rule over the land and all of its creatures. Every plant that bears fruit, and every creature on this earth is for you." And God saw that all of this was good. On the evening of the 6th day, God had finished with the creation of the earth. On the 7th day, God rested after all the work he had done. He blessed this day and called on all of his creations to rest on the 7th day of every week. The earth he created was a paradise where Adam and Eve and all God's creatures lived in perfect harmony. This was the Garden of Eden. In the center of the garden, God planted a large apple tree. He said to Adam and Eve, "All of what you see is yours, but I forbid you to eat the fruits of this apple tree. Promise me that you will never touch them." Adam and Eve promised quickly and didn't think about it again. Until one day, when Eve was alone, a snake came to her and spoke. "Why don't you eat one of those apples?" he said in a low voice. "Certainly not. We have made a promise to God not to touch that fruit," said she. "But surely you realize that those apples give whomever eats them great wisdom and knowledge. Surely God would want his creations to have this." The snake went on and on until Eve could no longer resist. She ate a bite of one of the apples and gave one to Adam, who also ate. Suddenly Adam and Eve possessed great wisdom and knowledge, just as the snake said they would. They immediately realized that they were naked. This made them ashamed, and they quickly covered themselves with leaves. God came to them later that day. He noticed that they were no longer naked. "You have eaten the fruit I forbade you to eat." "It was Eve. She gave me the fruit to eat." "It was the snake. He tempted me so I couldn't resist." God was furious. He sent them out of the Garden of Eden forever and cursed them as they were leaving. "Adam, because you allowed yourself to be tempted by Eve, you and all the men after you shall be punished by having to toil and suffer to live. The earth will yield her fruits to you only by hard and painful work. Eve, because you allowed yourself to be tempted by the snake, you and all the women after you shall be punished by having to bear children in great pain, and you shall be the servant of your man. Snake, because of your wicked act, you shall be punished by having to spend your life on your belly. You and all of your offspring shall be hated by man." And so Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden forever. Thus their lives were harder, but they were wiser than all other animals to this day because of the apple they ate.
At the beginning of time, the god Chao lived up above with his wife and children. He was the king of sky and earth. The god Chao had many names. He was also known as Father, the Son, Antu, and Huenichen, creator of the world. The queen was his mother and his wife all at once. Her name was Kusha, which means witch, but she also had many names: Moon, Blue Queen, and Maga. Chao began creating the sky with all of its clouds and stars, and the earth. He created the rivers and forests and gigantic mountain ranges. By sowing seeds, Between his great fingers, he brought forth the animals and people, the Mapuches. From the sky, Chao watched over his creations and gave them light during the day. At night, his wife, the moon, cared for the various creatures on earth. Chao's sons grew quickly. They started to question their father's rule, and soon they decided to take over his great power. They planned to rule the earth. When Chao found out, he became so angry that he threw his two sons down to earth. As their enormous bodies struck the earth, they created two large holes in the ground. Mother Moon was heartbroken. She started to cry great floods of tears, which filled the two holes with water. This is how the lakes Lakar and Lolog were created. When he saw his wife's sadness, Chao felt sorry for what he had done. He took the bodies of his fallen children and made them into a great serpent with wings. He named this creature Kai Kai Falu. But Kai Kai Falu still carried the souls of the two rebellious sons within him. He too wanted to overthrow Chao. Kai Kai Falu grew angry, and from time to time he bashed his tail and flapped his wings. This created floods and earthquakes. Chao was worried about this, so he made a second good serpent out of clay. He named him Tren Tren and sent him down to earth to keep an eye on Kai Kai Falu. Whenever Kai Kai Falu got into another evil mood, Tren Tren would whistle and warn the people. After many years had passed, Chao decided to come down to earth one day to teach people about growing and preserving food and how to tell time. He came disguised as a man with dark skin wearing leather. Chao also gave his people the gift of fire. This is when the Mapuches started calling him the Good from the Sky. Many years passed and Chao returned to heaven. People started to forget him and his teachings, and they started to fight amongst each other. Chao looked down on them from above and became very bitter. He decided to ask the angry Kai Kai Falu for help. He wanted the serpent to scare people a little so that they would remember their creator and start living the right way again. Tren Tren overheard Chao talking to Kai Kai Falu and decided to warn the Mapuches by whistling. When they heard this, the people fled up into the mountains, looking for protection from the rolling boulders, earthquakes, and floods created by Kai Kai Falu's big tail. But it was of no use. The earth trembled so hard that all people died except for one boy and one girl who hid in a cave on the mountain. The little boy and girl grew up with the help of a vixen and a female puma who fed them their milk. From these two people came a new population of Mapuches. Chao was satisfied with his new race. Eventually, Chao stopped worrying about mankind. Harvests are not as plentiful as before. Disease is everywhere, and children have stopped obeying their parents. Nowadays, Chao doesn't even listen to the Mapuche people's prayers. That is why the white men were able to take so much away from them.